Hi guys, I'm back again. My name is Brett Rowley and I am a business strategist, marketing consultant, creator of the Side Hustle Starter Kit, which is a cool online course for people starting their businesses and not sure where to start. And really, I just love talking about business, which is why I'm here and why I started my YouTube channel and did a whole video about that. So if you're interested in kind of how everything started and why I got into this, that's out there. But for today, in this video, I want to talk about the death of advertising. As you may have seen, it seems like every week or so a new article pops up, and it talks about the death of advertising, how how much it's changed and how people are going totally away from advertising, focusing solely on inbound marketing. And I think it's funny because in an age where people are talking about the death of advertising, I feel like I'm being advertised to more than ever. And you probably had to watch an ad to get to my video, or you'll have to watch it midway through. We get ads in our videos all the way around, following us around the internet. I'm sure we all have stories about like having a conversation about something and then the next thing you know, you're getting advertised a product that's similar or that's relevant to that because your phone's listening to you. Like, I don't understand people that say advertising is dead when it's literally all around us. I think the more accurate statement, and what I want to talk about today, is the death of ineffective advertising. I think that the old way of connecting with consumers essentially was focused on sales at any cost, right? So you would interrupt their daily lives, screaming your advertising message to them, and hope that a small percentage would convert. It was a numbers play. And that worked for a while. Like when radio and TV and kind of the Mad Men age of advertising was so big, that's what was working because people were glued to their TVs. They didn't have any other options. So people would be sitting around the TV watching the commercials in between their shows or their sporting events. And that's just not something that's happening anymore. The whole streaming services and being able to fast forward, like people aren't just gonna watch your commercials if they have an alternative or a chance not to do it. So today's consumer is so much smarter and willing to circumvent any unwanted marketing messages. So that leads us as business owners to start to answer the question or solve the problem of, well, okay, if these traditional channels aren't there anymore, and that's not even a true statement, they're there, but they're much less effective on a large scale. How do we advertise our businesses if these traditional channels are gone? If I can't go to an advertising agency and put a TV spot together and sell X amount of products, what do I do instead? And especially for small businesses, this is especially relevant where TV ads probably aren't a great option, or they aren't budget friendly for sure. How can we advertise our business in an effective way and make sure that we're not part of this whole, to make sure that we're part of the solution and not the problem? I think that's what's happened over the last couple of decades is advertising has gotten a bad rap, right? We want to sell at all costs. We're not necessarily known for listening to consumers. And so how can we turn that around? How can we, again, be part of the solution, do it the right way? So not only it's effective for your business and drive sales, but we create an environment in which we're pushing other businesses to be better as well. I think that that's kind of the ultimate goal, is to create an advertising environment where everyone is focused on the consumer. Everyone is kind of doing it the right way because they've seen that it's more effective. So what is the right way, you ask? I've got a few tips to start to figure out what's going to work best for you. The first thing to avoid ineffective advertising and to advertise effectively for you is to focus on your brand. Advertising has a cumulative effect in that you have to be in front of your target audience several times before they're going to remember your brand, probably even more than that before they're going to make a purchase in most cases. So to make sure that all of your advertising efforts are working together, make sure that you're focusing on your brand. Consider how you want to be perceived, consider the tone that you want to use, the visual choices you make, and make sure that it's all part of a larger story. So your brand story, and that's kind of a popular word right now, but your brand story is crucial because it allows you to connect to customers and make them feel like they're a part of your company, make them feel like they know you, or they know your story and what you're about. I think that that's kind of the best way to sum it up. So when you're thinking about your brand story, think about how you want to be perceived. Think about, if this is a great example. If someone that had no affiliation with your company whatsoever was to tell their friend about your company, how would you want them to describe you? I'll let that sink in for a second. But so how would you want a stranger to your company to describe your company? And that message is what you need to build your brand story around. How can you clearly and concisely communicate how you want people to refer you? Because that's essentially what you're doing, is when you are doing a great job communicating your brand story, when you're elevating your consumer experience, you're creating a sales team essentially of avid followers, of avid fans of your brand. So how do you want them to describe you? And that's how I would start to kind of build your brand story. So the other thing when it comes to focusing on your brand, this isn't a must do. You can be successful without this, but it's so much easier to build a connection with your customers if you have a face to the brand. It doesn't have to be you if you don't want it to, but having some type of face or human element to your brand is key. And that's why you're seeing that's why you've kind of seen the rise of the influencer marketing movement, because they are putting faces and brands together and kind of bringing this idea of brand marketing. If you look at massive companies like Coca-Cola or Nike, it kind of brings that brand marketing down to a relatable level. When you see influencers that you follow on Instagram or Facebook using those products and telling you how they're integrating them into their lives, that's how those larger companies are putting a face behind that brand. So how can you incorporate, whether it's yourself or an influencer marketing strategy, how can you incorporate a personal brand into your company's brand story if you feel like that would be a good fit? So once you've focused on your brand, you understand that advertising is cumulative, you know that it's kind of a long-term play. The second step, and this I think is probably the most important, or at least the most, this is kind of the light bulb step for most people. When I'm talking to my clients about stuff like this, when I talk about being inviting, it's the second step. Once you're focusing on your brand, I want you to be inviting when it comes to your advertising. And that sounds kind of, like what, Brett, what are you talking about? Here's the difference. You want to invite with your ads. You want to invite consumers to take the next step. Don't scream at them to take advantage of, this once in a lifetime offer today. It's the difference between effective consumer focused marketing and like the radio. It makes me think of the radio ads with car dealers screaming at you to buy a car this month, right? Has anyone ever listened to one of those guys screaming and be like, you know what? I do need to go to that dealership and buy that car this month. Like, think about your own reaction to promotional materials like that. How do you respond? And put yourself or put your consumers in those shoes when you're thinking about your own advertising. So be inviting. Today's consumer is the most informed consumer that we've ever seen, and they also have access to more information than ever before. So knowing that, treat your marketing campaigns as an invitation to learn more, as an educational experience. So your ad is essentially the tip of the iceberg. If you can picture like, those pictures of like the iceberg, and then underneath it's really this massive thing underneath. The tip of the iceberg is your ad. It's the outward facing content that you want people to see. It's important, but more importantly is everything else underneath. So once someone has opted in, whatever that initial invitation is, maybe it's to download a white paper, maybe it's an introductory service or a consultation or a coupon code, whatever that first opt-in is, everything else comes after that. So the difference between an ad that says, hey, enter your email address and we'll give you a 25% off coupon code, and an ad that says, buy our thing for $100. Like, the difference in those two things, the conversion rate difference in those two ads is going to be massive, because you've lowered the barrier to entry and you've treated a consumer like an informed consumer. Like, they know, okay, I'm gonna get this 25% off coupon. I may or may not use it, but then what happens next is what's key. In the form of emails, in the form of retargeted ads. I think of it as a trail of breadcrumbs. This is a metaphor that I use a lot with my clients. You want to just give them the next step that you want them to take. So don't try to sell them the whole thing right with your ads. Invite them to learn more. Invite them to shop new arrivals. Invite them to learn more about your services. Like whatever that sales process looks like for you, whatever that trail of breadcrumbs is, use your marketing funnel to move people from breadcrumb to breadcrumb. The third thing that I want to talk about when it comes to effective advertising is to find native opportunities. So interruption, if you have, I think I mentioned this book before. I don't know if I have it on my bookshelf. It's somewhere. There's a book called Friction. I think I've mentioned it before, but it's a really great read if you're interested in learning more about how to effectively advertise, how to reduce interruptions and build out advertising opportunities that are going to reflect, an effective and strategic approach to advertising. So this ties into my third point, which is finding native opportunities. So the book is called Friction. It talks about reducing friction along the sales process for your clients, and the same thing applies to the advertising space. So you want to reduce interruptions, you want to reduce friction when people see your ads, you want it to feel like something that they want to see. Because if you think about it, in most cases, we talked about at the beginning, ads are an unwelcome interruption in your day. And it's tough to be, like, for example, we were driving, Jamie and I were driving to my parents' house for Thanksgiving, and I had Spotify playing on my phone through the car, and I wanted to listen to this particular artist. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it was a bug on Spotify or I don't know what it was, but I swear, like, I would listen to one song and then get 3 ads, and then one other song and then 3 more ads. And I was getting so angry, mostly because Jamie said that I should have used Pandora, but I am loyal to Spotify. Because I was like, this is so outrageous. Like, I'm trying to listen, like I'm in the middle of this jam session on our way to my parents' house, and I can't listen to the music that I want to listen to because there are literally 3 ads in between every song. And we got started talking about this idea of finding native opportunities. And essentially what that means is, how can you incorporate your advertising message into content that your audience is already consuming? And going back to my Spotify example, I was like, why don't brands get artists to speak on their ads and talk about, hey, I use this product? Like one of the, it was like Geico and, some other brands. And like, that would be the only, because I was trying to think, what would be the way that I would be open to listening to ads via Spotify in this experience? And I think, can you hear Melly? I was about to switch around the camera and show you guys. I wish you could see. She's barking because this guy just went skateboarding by, and his dog was pulling him on the skateboard. Anyway, so back to my point, the only way that I would be willing to listen to ads in that setting where I was like in the middle of listening to an artist on Spotify is if that artist or a similar artist was talking about how they use those products or services. And that is a great example. They didn't do it. They need to call me. Geico, if you're out there, call me. But that's a great example of how to use native advertising to be relevant and to be non-intrusive into somebody's daily life. Pre-rolls on YouTube are another great example of this. If you can find YouTube videos that are relevant to your audience, that you know you're getting a high percentage of potential clients that are watching these videos, create a pre-roll video that goes right into what they're watching. Again, it all boils down to finding ways to make your advertising relevant. The last thing, and I've talked about this before, I will keep talking about this. You guys hear me say consumer focused, like I feel like every video. But the last thing when it comes to being effective in advertising is to empower your consumers. Be about something bigger. It's the only way for your audience to feel invested in your business, invested in your brand. Help them tie into something larger than just a simple transaction. Could be a charitable cause. It could be goal that they're trying to seek or a way of life that they're interested in. I like to ask my clients to think of their products or services in two ways, either helping their customers solve a problem or helping their customers achieve a goal. And if you start to break down your products or services you're offering in those ways, then you'll be able to tie into something bigger, tell a full story around how your products or services plug into somebody's life and make a difference. That difference is your selling point. I'll do a whole nother video on this at some point, but the only thing that you're selling is the impact that you have on people's lives. And I know that that sounds like so pie in the sky, but it applies to every single product or service, down to toilet paper. The only reason people buy toilet paper is because of the impact it has on their lives. I know that's so gross, but you can apply it to, if it applies to toilet paper, it applies to everything. So anyway, I will end on that, my lovely toilet paper example. But as always, if you have questions or want to talk more about advertising, you can tell this is a topic that I'm really passionate about, being effective in advertising, because I think it gets a bad rap, and there are ways to be effective there, and to use advertising to connect with your consumers. So I hope that this video encourages you to take a deeper look into your advertising strategy. Again, if you have questions, leave them in a comment. Make sure if you enjoyed this video to like it and subscribe to my channel. I put out business videos. I try to get them out once a week. Sometimes they come out in quicker batches. But we talk about all things from promotion to productivity to business strategy on this channel. So I hope you will come back, and I will see you next time.